The fluorescent lights of Nexus Technologies hummed their usual monotonous tune as I sat at my desk on the 14th floor, fingers dancing across the keyboard with the kind of muscle memory that comes from 3 years of dedication. My name is Maya Chen, and I was a senior software engineer at one of Silicon Valley's most promising tech companies. Not the flashiest position, perhaps, but I'd earned every line of code, every promotion, every ounce of respect from my colleagues through late nights, innovative solutions, and an unwavering commitment to excellence. I loved my work, the elegant architecture of clean code, the satisfaction of solving problems that seemed impossible, the thrill of watching an algorithm execute flawlessly. These were the things that made my heart race. My latest project was something special, an AI-driven security protocol that could revolutionize how companies protected their data. According to YouTube analytics, 99% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. I'd spent 8 months developing it, pouring my soul into every function, every test case, every documentation page. It was my baby, my masterpiece, and it was nearly complete. Great work on the quarterly presentation, Maya, Sarah from the product team said as she passed my cubicle, offering a genuine smile. I returned it, feeling that warm glow of accomplishment. The presentation had gone well. The board was impressed. My manager, Tom, had even pulled me aside afterward to hint at a significant promotion in the works. Life was good. Life was fair, or so I believed. That afternoon, everything changed with a single Slack message from Ethan Carrington, the CEO's son. Ethan had joined Nexus 6 months ago, fresh out of business school, with an MBA from an Ivy League institution and zero practical experience. He was 26, handsome in that polished, entitled way, and he carried himself with the confidence of someone who'd never had to prove himself. His father, Robert Carrington, had built Nexus from the ground up, transforming it from a garage startup into a billion-dollar enterprise. Ethan, apparently, was being groomed to take over someday. The message was innocuous enough. Hey Maya, having some login issues with the dev server. Can you share your credentials so I can check something real quick? Promise I'll just be a minute. I stared at the message, my instincts immediately bristling. Sharing login credentials was against company policy. Security 101. Everyone knew this. Everyone followed this rule, especially on our development servers where all our proprietary code lived. I typed back, "Hey Ethan, I can't share my login, but I'm happy to help you with whatever you need. What are you trying to access?" The response came quickly. "Oh, come on, don't be difficult. My dad runs this place. I just need to check on a quick thing for a project he asked me to look into. It's literally just for 5 minutes." Something felt wrong, but he was the CEO's son. The pressure was implicit, hanging in the digital air like a threat I couldn't quite articulate. I'd heard stories about employees who'd crossed Ethan, who'd been reassigned to less desirable projects or quietly pushed out. Still, I held firm. "I really can't, Ethan. It's against security protocol. But I can log in and pull whatever you need, or we can get IT to set you up with proper access." 10 minutes passed. Then my phone rang. It was Tom, my manager, and his voice carried an edge I'd never heard before. "Maya, I need you to cooperate with Ethan. He's working on something important for Robert. Just give him what he needs." My stomach dropped. "Tom, you know we're not supposed to share credentials. It's a security violation. I could lose my access, maybe even my job." "And you could lose your job for not being a team player," Tom said, his words clipped and uncomfortable. I could almost hear him squirming. He was being pressured, too. "Look, it's just this once. Ethan assured me it's for a legitimate purpose. Just make it easy, okay?" I felt the walls closing in. This was wrong. Every fiber of my being screamed that this was wrong, but I was also practical. I had student loans. I had rent in one of the most expensive cities in America. I had a career I'd worked desperately hard to build. With trembling hands, I typed out my username and password and sent them to Ethan, followed immediately by, "Please change your request through official channels in the future." His response was a casual, "Thanks," with a thumbs up emoji. I felt sick. For the rest of the day, I couldn't concentrate. I kept checking the server logs, watching for any unusual activity. But everything seemed normal. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe he really did just need quick access for something legitimate. Maybe I was being paranoid. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, I arrived at the office to find my badge wouldn't open the main entrance. My heart hammered as I tried again. And again, nothing. I walked to the security desk, where Marcus, the usual guard, looked at me with confusion. Sorry, Miss Chen, but your access has been revoked. You'll need to speak with HR. The walk to the HR department felt like a funeral march. Jennifer, the HR director, was waiting for me, her expression a careful mask of professional sympathy. Maya, please have a seat. I'm afraid we've discovered a serious security breach originating from your login credentials. Proprietary code was accessed and copied to an external drive yesterday evening. As you know, this is grounds for immediate termination. The room spun. What? No, I didn't. I gave my credentials to Ethan Carrington. He said he needed them for a project for his father. Tom told me to cooperate. Jennifer's expression didn't change. We have no record of any such request. Ethan has denied asking for your credentials, and Tom says he never instructed you to share them. The security logs show your credentials were used to download significant portions of our AI security protocol codebase. I'm sorry, Maya, but we have to let you go, effective immediately. Security will escort you out. I sat there, frozen, as the words washed over me. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. You can check the Slack messages, I said, my voice rising with desperation. I have proof. He asked me directly. We've reviewed your Slack history. There are no messages from Ethan Carrington requesting your credentials. My blood ran cold. That's impossible. I have them on my computer. Let me show you. Your computer has been remotely wiped as part of our security protocol. All data has been erased. He deleted the messages. Of course he had. And I had no backup, no screenshots, no proof of a conversation that had absolutely happened. My word against the CEO's son. I thought about fighting, about screaming, about demanding justice. But Jennifer's face told me everything I needed to know. This decision had come from the top. This was already decided. I was just a loose end being tied up. 2 security guards appeared at the door. I rose on shaking legs, gathered what little dignity I had left, and walked out of Nexus Technologies for the last time. 3 years of my life, countless hours of dedication, my reputation, my project, all of it gone in a single morning. The worst part? As I was being escorted out, I saw Ethan in the hallway. He looked right at me, and for just a moment, a small smile played at the corner of his lips before he turned away and continued his conversation with a colleague. He'd stolen my work. He'd framed me. He'd destroyed my career. And he'd gotten away with it. The following weeks were a blur of pain and humiliation. I applied for jobs, but word traveled fast in the tech industry. Security breach at Nexus appeared in whispered conversations. Interview processes that started promising would suddenly go cold. No one wanted to hire someone who'd been fired for stealing code, regardless of the truth. My savings dwindled. My confidence shattered. I stopped sleeping properly, stopped eating regularly. Every morning, I'd wake up with the same crushing weight on my chest, the same replaying of those final moments, wondering what I could have done differently. My friends tried to help. Sue them, my best friend Rachel urged over coffee one afternoon. You have rights. This is wrongful termination. With what money? I asked, stirring my coffee mechanically. And against Robert Carrington, his legal team would bury me. Even if I won eventually, I'd be blacklisted forever. No tech company would touch me after I sued the industry's golden boy. So he just gets away with it? That's not fair. Life isn't fair, I said, the words tasting bitter. Fairness is a fairy tale we tell ourselves. But even as I said it, even as I tried to accept my fate, something in me refused to become cynical. I'd been raised by parents who believed in integrity, in doing the right thing even when it hurt. My mother had been a teacher who'd never taken a dime bribe despite working in a system rife with corruption. My father had been an engineer who'd walked away from a lucrative contract when he discovered the company was cutting safety corners. I wouldn't seek revenge. I wouldn't become what Ethan was. But I also wouldn't stop being who I was. So I focused on survival. I took a job at a small startup, a significant step down in prestige and pay, but they were willing to take a chance on me. I worked harder than ever, rebuilding my reputation, one project at a time. I held my head high even when I wanted to hide. I answered questions about why I'd left Nexus with a simple, dignified, "It was time for a change." 3 months after my firing, I saw the announcement. Ethan Carrington had been promoted to VP of Innovation at Nexus Technologies. The press release praised his revolutionary AI security protocol that would launch next quarter. My protocol, my work, my 8 months of sweat and creativity, now credited to someone who couldn't code his way out of a paper bag. I cried that night, alone in my apartment, the kind of deep, body-shaking sobs that come from a wound that won't heal. But the next morning, I got up. I went to work. I kept going. Because what else could I do? 4 more months passed. Life continued its relentless forward march. I was doing good work at the startup, and my new colleagues appreciated me. It wasn't Nexus, but it was honest, and slowly, painfully, I was rebuilding. Then came the news that sent shockwaves through the tech world. It started with a TechCrunch article. Nexus Technologies' highly anticipated security protocol fails spectacularly in beta testing. I read it during my lunch break, my hands beginning to shake. The article detailed how Nexus's new AI security protocol, the one Ethan had claimed credit for, had catastrophic failures during its beta rollout. Not only did it fail to prevent breaches, but it actually created vulnerabilities in the systems it was meant to protect. Several beta clients had experienced data leaks. One financial institution had lost customer information. Another had their entire network temporarily compromised. My protocol wouldn't have done that. It couldn't have. I tested it meticulously, built in redundancies, designed fail-safes, unless someone had modified it without understanding the underlying architecture. Unless someone had tried to improve code they didn't actually comprehend. The articles multiplied over the following days. Industry experts weighed in, tearing apart the protocol's flaws. The technical analysis revealed amateurish modifications, clumsy attempts to add features that broke core functionality. Someone had taken a sophisticated, elegant system and butchered it. Within a week, Nexus's stock had dropped 15%. Beta clients were threatening lawsuits. The company's reputation, built over decades, was crumbling. And then came the internal investigation. I learned about it from Sarah, my former colleague, from the product team, who reached out via a carefully worded email. "You should know that things are happening here. The truth is coming out." The investigation had been triggered by the security failures, but once they started digging, they found everything. They found that Ethan had made significant modifications to the protocol without proper testing or approval. They found his pattern of taking credit for other people's work, not just mine. He'd been doing it systematically, collecting projects from junior developers who were too afraid to speak up, and they found the deleted Slack messages. Apparently, Nexus's IT department kept backups of everything, including deleted communications, as part of their data retention policy. When investigators went looking, they found my conversation with Ethan, exactly as I described it. They found his request for my credentials. They found my refusal and his pressure. They found Tom's call logs confirming he'd pressured me. They also found that Ethan had used my credentials not just to steal my work, but to access other developers' projects as well. He'd been building his portfolio of innovations entirely on the backs of people he'd intimidated into silence. The board of directors was furious. Robert Carrington was publicly humiliated. The son he'd been grooming to take over had not only cost the company hundreds of millions in market value, but had created massive legal liability and destroyed the company's reputation. I watched it all unfold from a distance, feeling like I was witnessing a Greek tragedy. I hadn't done anything. I hadn't sought revenge, hadn't leaked information, hadn't sabotaged anyone. I'd simply walked away with my dignity intact and focused on my own path. And yet, karma had found its way. The final act came 6 weeks after the scandal broke. I was in a meeting at my startup when my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, but when I listened later, I heard a voice I never expected. Robert Carrington himself. "Ms. Chen, this is Robert Carrington from Nexus Technologies. I owe you a conversation, and more importantly, I owe you an apology. Please call me back at your earliest convenience." I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes, staring at my phone, before I found the courage to return the call. "Thank you for calling back," Robert said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. I've learned the truth about what happened with you and my son. There are no words adequate for how sorry I am. You were wronged terribly, and I allowed it to happen under my watch. I remained silent, letting him continue. Ethan has been terminated from Nexus. He will not be returning in any capacity. We've also corrected your employment record. Your termination has been changed to a resignation in good standing, with full reference privileges. You're welcome to return to Nexus in any capacity you choose, with a significant promotion and compensation package. Mr. Carrington, I said quietly, my voice surprisingly steady, I appreciate the apology, but I won't be returning to Nexus. There was a pause. I understand. May I ask why? Because I've learned something important over these months. I've learned that my worth isn't determined by my job title or who employs me. I've learned that integrity matters more than prestige. And I've learned that I can survive anything as long as I don't compromise who I am. You're a remarkable person, Ms. Chen. For what it's worth, you were right all along, and I was blind. I hope you'll allow me to at least provide you with a settlement for the damages our actions caused you. We negotiated through lawyers after that. The settlement was substantial, enough to erase my debts and provide a cushion for the future. But more important than the money was the public statement Nexus released, acknowledging that I had been wrongfully terminated and clearing my name in the industry. Job offers started coming in. Headhunters who wouldn't return my calls 6 months ago were suddenly very interested in my talents. My LinkedIn was flooded with connection requests, but I stayed where I was, at my little startup, because the people there had believed in me when no one else would. We were building something good, something honest, and I wanted to see it through. I did, however, make one change. I started teaching a monthly seminar for young women and minorities in tech, sharing my story and offering advice. Never compromise your integrity for anyone. Never give in to pressure to violate your principles. The short-term cost might feel unbearable, but your dignity is the only thing no one can take from you unless you give it away. As for Ethan, I heard through the grapevine that he'd moved to New York, trying to reinvent himself in finance. His LinkedIn profile made no mention of his time at Nexus. He'd become a cautionary tale, whispered about in conference rooms and networking events. Remember the CEO's son who destroyed his father's company? I never sought him out. I never gloated. I never even thought about revenge. Because here's what I'd learned. Karma isn't about punishment or revenge. It's about consequence. Actions have ripples, and those ripples eventually come back to their source. Ethan had built his success on deception, theft, and the exploitation of others' fear. That foundation was always going to crumble. It was only a matter of time. I had chosen a different path. I'd chosen to maintain my integrity even when it cost me everything. And while the road had been painful, more painful than I'd ever imagined, it had led me to a place of genuine peace. A year after my firing, I attended a tech conference in San Francisco. During a networking break, I found myself standing in front of a massive window overlooking the city, thinking about how far I'd come. My startup was thriving. My reputation was restored. I was happy. Maya Chen? I turned to find Tom, my former manager at Nexus, standing behind me with a cup of coffee and an uncomfortable expression. Hi, Tom. I wanted to apologize for what I did to you. I knew it was wrong when I told you to give Ethan your credentials. I knew it, but I was scared for my job, and I took the coward's way out. What happened to you was my fault too. I looked at him, this man who'd mentored me, who'd helped my career, who'd ultimately betrayed me to save himself. I could have been angry. Part of me wanted to be, but I was tired of carrying that weight. Thank you for saying that, I said simply. It took courage to approach me. Are you okay now? I am. Better than okay, actually. What happened was terrible, but it taught me what I'm made of. It taught me that I can survive anything without losing myself. That's a lesson worth learning, even if the tuition was steep. Tom nodded slowly, relief washing over his features. You're a better person than I am. I'm just a person who chose to let go of bitterness, not for anyone else's sake, but for my own. We talked for a few more minutes before parting ways. As I watched him walk away, I felt the last piece of resentment dissolve. I wasn't carrying that anymore. I was free. That evening, I posted something on my professional blog, not naming names, but sharing my story. I wrote about injustice, about dignity, about the importance of maintaining integrity even when the world seems to reward the opposite. I wrote about how sometimes the best revenge is no revenge at all, just living well, growing stronger, and trusting that truth has a way of surfacing. The post went viral. Thousands of people shared their own stories of workplace betrayal, of standing up for what's right, of surviving what seemed insurmountable. Messages poured in from people who'd been where I was, who needed to hear that they weren't alone, that holding on to their integrity was worth it. One message in particular caught my attention. It was from a young developer who'd been pressured to falsify testing results at her company. She'd refused, been demoted, and was contemplating quitting the industry altogether. "Your story gave me hope," she wrote. "Thank you for reminding me that doing the right thing matters, even when it costs us everything." I replied, "It does cost us, sometimes dearly. But the alternative, becoming someone we're not, living with that compromise every day, that costs even more. You made the right choice. Keep going." And that, I realized, was the real ending to my story. Not Ethan's downfall, not the vindication, or the settlement, or the restored reputation. The real ending was this: I had become someone I was proud to be, someone who could look in the mirror without flinching, someone who knew, deep in her bones, that her integrity was intact. Ethan had stolen my login, stolen my work, stolen months of my life and peace of mind. But he couldn't steal who I was. That I had kept. And in the end, karma didn't just log him out. It showed me, showed everyone watching, that the only person you truly need to answer to is yourself. That success built on lies is a house of cards waiting for the inevitable wind. That dignity, once surrendered, is almost impossible to reclaim. I had learned these lessons the hard way, through pain and tears and dark nights of the soul, but I had learned them, and they had made me not just stronger, but better. 2 years later, my startup was acquired by a major tech firm for a staggering sum. The protocol I'd developed there, born from the ashes of what Ethan had stolen, built better and stronger, became an industry standard. My name was on the patents. My reputation was unassailable. I didn't need to rub it in anyone's face. I didn't need to send Ethan a gloating message or make a public statement about how far I'd come. Success, real success, speaks for itself. Instead, I used part of my acquisition money to establish a scholarship fund for young developers from underrepresented backgrounds. I wanted to help others who might face the same challenges I had, who might be pressured to compromise, who might need to know that integrity has value even in a world that often seems to reward the opposite. On the day the scholarship was announced, I received a text from an unknown number. "You won. Congratulations." I didn't recognize it, but somehow I knew who it was. Ethan, watching from whatever exile he'd crafted for himself, acknowledging what had always been true, but he was wrong. I hadn't won because he'd lost. I hadn't won because karma had caught up with him, or because my career had recovered. I had won the moment I chose integrity over expediency, dignity over revenge, growth over bitterness. Everything else was just confirmation. I deleted the text without responding and went back to work, building, creating, mentoring, living a life I was proud of. The past was behind me, the future was wide open, and I was exactly where I was meant to be. Not because karma had punished my enemies, but because I had refused to let injustice turn me into someone I wasn't. That was the real victory. That was always the real victory, and it was mine to keep.